And we're live. All right, I don't have any of these normal alerts, and I'm just realizing my chat is broken, but we can fix that really quick here. Welcome to my first stream here on Analog Dreams. If you're watching on YouTube, otherwise on Twitch, hello, hello. I am going to fix my chat real quick. I'm going to add a new browser source. Hello, how are you all doing? Today's episode is all about preparedness, which I have none, but we're gonna deal. We're gonna interact. We're gonna set that to live chat. We're gonna close it. We're gonna crop it. We're gonna put it over here. Hello. Okay, so today we're doing effectively like my streamer news show I do on my main channel, which is all about streaming news, tech news, how it relates to you and how it relates to the content that I'm going to make. What's up, Not Your Parents GNS and Slightly Wilson? But today we're talking about AI news, as there has been so much, especially with GTC, the Game Tech Conference, NVIDIA's tech conference. There's been a lot of streaming related news come out, or AI related news come out, that I just don't have the capacity at this moment to make videos on all the different news. And so I've compiled everything I can keep track of and find, and I just want to talk about how it changes the game, how it affects you if you're a content creator or an artist or an advertiser. I don't know, you know, how it might affect you and what you could do with it. And so I'm going to try to keep this to about an hour so I can go make dinner and be with the family for the weekend, because it's been a ridiculous week in so many ways. But we're going to have some live demos of a couple things, and I am stoked to check it out regardless. It looks like I have cropped off the actual YouTube chat part, which was obviously not intended. There we go. Hello, Diddy and English Crusade and Kana and Matt FBK. A channel just for AI or what? This channel is dedicated to art and creativity. AI art is included in there, glitch art, that kind of stuff. If you're new to the Analog Dreams YouTube channel, if you're watching over on Twitch, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm also streaming on my secondary YouTube channel, which I've been running for about 8 months now. Been going pretty good. Super stoked on it. Just don't always have the time to watch, or to not to watch rather, but to, you know, create videos for it. But first and foremost, I wanted to show off Adobe Firefly. Adobe Firefly is Adobe's take on an AI art generator, and this released only just a couple weeks ago, maybe a week ago at this point, and they have created some really interesting ideas here. It is an AI art generator, much like Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, things like that, but they took their time to get to this point, specifically because their priority as one of the biggest, if not the biggest, creative tool company for like actual professional artists and designers, is that all of their data sets are ethically sourced and like safely sourced so that everything has commercial viability. Although during the beta, you cannot make commercial work with it just because it's the beta and they haven't figured everything out yet. But you know, their focus is on the commercial viability of the work and not stealing from artists or anything like that, which is absolutely huge. And honestly, like, all of the artists that were never going to touch AI art generators because of that reasoning have less and less options. Secondly, is because, or less and less excuses rather. Secondly, because they are integrating it directly with the Adobe Suite apps. So it's going to integrate directly with Photoshop and InDesign. And there was I believe Illustrator. I think there was one other one, like Publisher or something. They are integrating it directly with the apps long term, not in this moment. And that is going to mean that you don't have to use this secondary weird looking tool. It'll just be kind of intuitive into the workflow that you're normally doing when you're drawing or painting or designing or making YouTube thumbnails or whatever. The third thing that made it stand out and be really cool is that they actually have text related things. Midjourney's most frustrating thing to it, its quirk, is that not only does it suck at generating text if you want it to in the first place, it's constantly throwing text into your work for like signs, or like if you make a movie poster, you know, it has all the text at the bottom or whatever, and it's all jumbled, half Russian, half gibberish looking gobbledygook. And it's really hard to get letters in the first place, and it's really hard to get rid of them when you don't want them. And so they have dedicated text effects. And so I want to make videos on it just like Midjourney and everything else. I will get to it. But I have not had a whole lot of time to mess with it because there's been some big news over on the streaming front over on my main channel work. And so I haven't had time to play with it yet, but I wanted to just give a general demo here of how this works, because it looks freaking amazing. The results are already pretty cool. And of course, there will be some degree of self-training that they can do to further improve it more and more over time. Look at this. Dystopian retro futuristic computer in ruins. Okay. So let's get rid of the in ruins part. I'm going to say Cyberpunk Knight Rider Miami Vice. So you have your text field, just like any other AI art generator. You have aspect ratio controls where you can just like choose between some options, which is pretty cool. We're going to do normal square is fine. Oh, it's already generating our prompt. You can choose content type. So right now we just haven't specified a specific content type. I do not know how it got. Did it just pick a random image? Did it not? What? Again, this is in beta. Why did it generate people? Because the Knight Rider thing. It doesn't know. Okay. That's another. Okay. So when we're talking about AI art, I just want to clarify. A downside you are going to see from these models that aren't trained on public copyrighted content is when you include ideas like that. It has no idea what Miami Vice or Knight Rider is. 1980s synth computer. Sci-fi cyberpunk PC. I believe if I remember from what I've read right, Firefly does better with more of like the singular phrase prompts rather than the big like multiple commas and you know, negative prompting and things like that. The people turned out a lot better than this. Something that all the AI art generators struggle with is technology things, because there's so many little details that it just doesn't know what to do with. So like if we look at this one, all the wires and stuff like that just turn into goop. But honestly, this looks kind of like Midjourney V2, which is pretty cool, a great starting point. And assuming they can keep, you know, improving it over time, look at Midjourney now. This is gonna be awesome. But we also didn't specify anything. So we have content type, we have styles. There's popular styles, different things you can choose from. You can choose your lighting, your composition, your color and tone, like all these things. So we've just put in a prompt. Now we can go in and specify, I want a photo and I want it to be synthwave. There's actually a thing for that, color and tone. I want it vibrant, and a lighting, I want it to be dramatic lighting, and composition, I want it to have a blurry background. Now, this one already just generated based on the synthwave color, and we're already getting those colors right in there, which is absolutely sick. But we've added on those other styles. We're going to click generate again. With the synthwave prompts and the dramatic lighting and stuff, we have gotten a lot closer to something looking like out of Tron or something. And again, the details are fumbled for now. When you're going for more photorealistic style things, actually, let's do art real quick. And let's say movie still frame. When you're going for more photorealistic styles, you're going to get something that is going to be a little, I guess, clearer. But even Midjourney struggles with things like this. But this is very impressive as a starting point. And if we just say cyberpunk woman with long hair and leather jacket holding a dystopian phone. And we've chosen art for this one. This is Adobe Firefly for those asking in chat. As art, this looks pretty sick. Some of the proportions are off. Again, this reminds me of Midjourney V2, V1, V3 even somewhat. The hands are there. Well, that one's a little weird. But like, that's almost a hand. That's better than Midjourney hands did for a very long time. So like, they're already doing pretty good. If we change it over to photo, we might get something a little better. Not really. I think the synthwave style in most of these generators are very aggressive. If we just do techniques, these are paintings, concepts. Let's do nostalgic instead of synthwave. I'm going to take out synthwave. We've added in nostalgic as a theme. There we go. It's basically the same people, but they look way more photorealistic. Like, these look at a glance, really photorealistic. Again, lots to improve on, but this is very exciting because, again, there's commercial viability here a lot more so than with Midjourney and Stable Diffusion and things like that, unless they start tweaking their models. And so I'm very stoked. This was just the text to image one. Again, they also have the text style effects one, and they even have vector tools that are going to come soon as well. But we can also just make full-on text effects, which is honestly insane. Like, we are going to see an explosion of like fonts and typography tools that come through to Illustrator and Photoshop as a result of this kind of tool. Admittedly, it's going to be a bit more like if you were around for like the arts and crafts days in the late 90s, early 2000s, you might remember the CK lettering CDs and floppies that your grandmas or aunts or something collected from like magazines and things like that, where it was just these big collections of fonts and graphics, and they were all like text effects and things like that, but they were very, very, I don't know the right word for it, but like camp, like very cheesy, because they just ran out of ideas and all went overboard on this. But like, this kind of thing is pretty cool. So we've got a holographic dripping color effect on text. We can choose the fit of it around the text, so it can get super loose or super tight around the effect, which is a really cool control to have. So now we're doing holographic drips, and since we chose loose, it's like spewing off of it. We can go tight and just have it wrap specifically around the font. Starts creating gaps in it as a result. That is freaking awesome. I like that it's generating every letter at a time. Eventually, though, I imagine you will absolutely be able to turn that into like fonts, which is going to be wild. You can choose from some fonts. I bet these are just using Adobe fonts, but theoretically, once it integrates in with like Photoshop and stuff, you should be able to use your own, I would guess. That. All right. With Poplar, it's actually looking pretty sick. Like, that is rad. And then you have different styles of it to generate between. So like, this is just one option, but it generated 4 of them. You can choose between that. You can choose your background color, so you could like key it out or whatever, or just do alpha, which is amazing. Like, this is wild. This is gonna be game changing, and I will be testing it very soon, and I cannot wait for just the explosion of creativity that comes from the people who implement these tools from like a professional artist perspective, because that is just wild. Imagine if you could export the font and implement it via browser source. Yeah, exactly. Like, at the moment, it's clearly just generating images wrapped around text, which is really cool that they have developed the tech for in the first place. But I do think eventually they will come up with, especially because they have the vector tools, they have, you know, they're working on Illustrator integration. I would imagine we reach a point where they could just generate actual, something close to fonts. Like, if they generated high res enough, or like do the right tricks, like they could generate something close to fonts. Taking a pause from AI art generators for a sec. I don't know if I have, Squid asked about something in the chat that I don't think I remembered to add to my list. So I'm going to pull up here. I'm only going to speak on this for a brief moment, but there's an open letter going on from Elon Musk and some other big names asking AI labs to pause on development of any AI faster, like smarter, better than ChatGPT-4 or GPT-4, which is certainly a very strange thing to happen. They want them to pause development on it for at least 6 months. The training of all systems more powerful than GPT-4. The letter is focused on that the chatbots are becoming human competitive at general tasks, and asking if we should flood our information channels with propaganda and untruth. The problem is that AI or not, those kinds of auto-generated content, propaganda, blah, 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 have been flooding the internet for a decade now. AI doesn't necessarily, like, it will add to it, but it doesn't necessarily accelerate it any more than was already done. Have you paid attention to any of the drama over Facebook and the Cambridge thing and Twitter and misinformation with elections and all of that in the first place? The Pandora's box is already open. So it will be very interesting to see how this conversation develops. I think this is mostly in vain, though. Like, I feel like, I don't know. I don't see the advantage, or like what will be gained by pausing for 6 months. 6 months, it If you paid any attention to the congressional hearings regarding TikTok and the fact that the people making laws and regulations and like deciding things in America, at least, regarding technology, have no clue about technology. 6 months is not enough time to get even just normal people that are somewhat tech savvy caught up with everything with AI. Nevertheless, like, legislators are like, make societal changes to adapt for this or to get ready for this. I don't see this being important, and I don't see the point in them pausing it. Like, sure, they could and there'd be minimal consequence, but realistically, Squid says their angle is that in those 6 months could be used to develop safety tools, but in the end, bad actors won't use those safety tools and we'll just give them time to catch up with Llama, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, like, the people who are going to do bad things are just going to bypass those restrictions, and you're not going to be able to continue developing these tools in a way that doesn't still, like, some version of them doesn't end up in the hands of people unrestricted. I don't think it's gonna matter, but I will very closely follow this conversation because I'm very curious to see what the response will be. At least I'll leave it at that. It's a weird scenario. It's the same in the UK. The government has no clue about tech. Yeah, like the safety systems are important for that kind of thing, but I think it's going to be a cat and mouse game in that they're always going to be kind of trying to catch up to whatever the bad guys are doing. I don't think it's going to be, even with new tools, like, there's no foolproof plan without nuking the capacity of the tool. So I don't know. But while we're on the topic of GPT and ChatGPT, there is this wonderful thread at Dickie Bush on Twitter talking about how he trained GPT-4 and he said, I think he used ChatGPT 3.5 as well, but trained it to come up with better results. Because effectively, the chatbot functionality of these text AI tools kind of misleads people into thinking the wrong way about what their interactions should look like with these tools. Because I think the expected engagement format with these tools is like, write me a school essay about why drama llamas are bad. Put it in the tone of Chris Rock. And like, you're supposed to trust all the information. You're supposed to assume it's all correct. You're supposed to assume it's going to come out in the format that you want, whatever. Obviously, this was a comedic example, not the real thing. But if you want to do actual work with ChatGPT, that's not really the way to go. And so he shows how he specifically, admittedly, this thread doesn't go into the exact how-to, because I think he wants to keep a little bit of that for himself. But the goal here is to train, because you get threads with ChatGPT now. You get threads. So you can continue training a singular thread on what you want it to do. And so I'm slowly going to start training one on FFmpeg scripts so I can have it keep things in memory that I don't keep in memory about things that I already have. And so I started out with some basics, and I've done a couple examples just trying to make a pass at it. But effectively, I'm going to feed it some examples and then feed it all of my FFmpeg scripts I use on a regular basis for my work, and then train the chatbot to give me specific formatted responses. And that is what this thread is about, is the formatting of the responses that you want the bot to give you. And so instead of making the bot think and give you the answers, it's just helping you come to the answers and format them in the way that you want. And so, for example, it shows things that ChatGPT is horrible at coming up with from scratch. Write me a Twitter thread, draft an email, come up with ideas. It's not a human. It doesn't think. It just synthesizes information. And so it builds out prompt writing. He builds out prompt writing formats with objective, format of the output, list of things to avoid. And he goes into a lot of detail about how you can basically upfront feed it a bunch of information and then bring it back to structuring that information in some formats, and then still reference outside sources that it thinks is legit. And then there are lots of other threads recently about basically having ChatGPT kind of question itself. And if you're like, okay, is that true, or what's wrong with this? Then it will actually start kind of dissecting the response it gave to you and correct some of the mistakes that it made. And so the example that he gave as a big one here is it generates a list of actions that someone interested in a topic might have questions about. Each must start, and then he has a constraint for it. Each must start with a verb so that I can write things that help people accomplish that action. So, building a daily writing habit. Here are 10 subtopics for building a daily writing habit. Identifying the purpose and motivation, creating a writing space, creating a writing space, setting realistic writing goals, developing a system for overcoming writer's block, blah, blah, blah. And then it asks, he set up the expectation that the bot will ask every prompt whether he's good with that. And if not, it will try again, or they can work on the prompt again. And otherwise, it moves on to the next stage of formatting. And then he's done it again with a bunch of different prompts like house music, blah, blah, blah. And it provides the same formatted response every time once you start training the interactions. Are you currently streaming with AV1 to YouTube? Yes, Twitch doesn't support it, but over on the YouTube stream, I am feeding AV1 at 4K. I sent that to the wrong Twitch chat. Lols. That's how AI is used in science. You need proper learning database to get meaningful results. Yes, exactly. And I think what people confuse here is that the data set that the chatbots are trained on, it's just the information it has and like the language skills it has to interact with you. It's not the information that it might know relevant to you. You still have to feed it that. You still have to tell it how to talk to you. And so there's been a few threads like this, but I really wanted to highlight this one. And when the show's over, it'll be linked in the description. That really are kind of eye-opening to how this could be the ultimate assistant. For me, due to like workflow constraints and needing to have a tab open at all times and stuff, I either need to basically come up with a hotkey like on my foot pedal or something that will just open up a ChatGPT window to my current thread or something so that I can easily call it up in front of me. Or I really want to invest in a solution that provides it with text-to-speech and speech recognition as a back and forth conversational thing. Because having to open a new tab, go to chat.openai.com, log in, find the thread, like there's some hurdles there from my perspective because of my kind of sporadic workflow that make it kind of weird. The thing people fundamentally don't realize about GPT is it doesn't actually reason through problems, it generates text. Yes, you have to make it reason. And there have been some examples with as they're training GPT-4 and 4.5 or whatever, where it solved where it hired someone to solve the CAPTCHA and it showed its reasoning. That's because they trained it and set it up an expectation, a format of the communication where the chatbot was expected to work through every single step, transparently show its work as to why it's doing its stuff, and then it makes better decisions as it works through the problem. And so there's been a few threads like that about how the more you make the chatbot show its work and the more iterations you make it run through to give the same prompt, the better results you get. And obviously that kind of thing will be improved and kind of be inherent to the chatbot workflow over time. But the more you can get, on board with trying to do this now, the better. And then he mentions that he asked ChatGPT to rewrite his own writing with 6 different tones, more formal, serious, sarcastic, blah, blah, blah. And it helps him develop new writing voices or just better approach his writing for a specific publication or audience a little bit better. Now, this gets into the art style territory where rewriting it as specific authors, not ideal, but realistically, if you're just using it to inform your own style, I don't see it as that harmful as long as you're not trying to directly plagiarize someone else or write as someone else. But being yeah, if you do business writing, you're like, all right, write this how Gary Vaynerchuk might. You get some quips and some little bits of how they write and things like that. Like I said, that's the least supported side from me. But lots of different ways you can ask to rewrite your own writing, and if you can build up the structures within ChatGPT for actually getting that format, it's going to make your life a lot easier. I will hopefully have some videos on this. I'm still working on it for myself. I feel guilty if I don't thank GPT after every result. Yeah, I do too, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm going to be working on this to help me write scripts better, because I'm not a coder. I took programming classes in high school. I've done batch scripts, Perl scripts, I've done website stuff. I've done some basic Python stuff, but like realistically, I just don't have the mind to keep everything in my mind. And then when I have an idea, the hurdle of having to look up every single library and to get formatting exactly right and blah, blah, blah. With my ADHD, it's too big of a hurdle to actually get things done. And so by integrating with something like this, where I can provide it my years of work that I do with video encoding scripts and things like that, I can basically just have it be like my intern doing the busy work for me. That's massive. So I am super stoked for this. Speaking of ChatGPT, there is also a lot of plugin systems coming very soon for it that are very exciting. They can integrate with, I believe, Zapier, which like will integrate with all of your like personal email and things like that, which is going to be wild. I can't wait to test that out. But like one of the things is, when you're interacting with the plugins, you're not coding it. You basically just tell it what to do. Like you let the model figure out the authentication, the handshakes, the interaction, and all that stuff. There, which is terrifying and amazing at the same time. And so, there's a GPT chatbot. Yes, that's what we're talking about. Oh, for Twitch. That's hilarious. What's up, Chatty Sand? Got to thank our robot overlords for when they take over. Yeah, if you're one of the good ones, they'll be nice, right? Right? I was not interested in AI, but I got invited to try out Google's AI bot and have only been using it to help with work technical questions, and I was pretty impressed. I got invited to Bard, which is Google's AI bot. I haven't had a chance to try it out yet, but it's on my list. Like I said, there's been so much piling up on the main channel work front that I haven't gotten to experiment with this side, but I really want to, which is why I want to get talking about this stuff now, because so much fun stuff is happening. Oh, this is the thread. I didn't realize I actually had a tweet for it. This is the thread I was talking about. Someone plotted out like the success of making at least with GPT-4, ChatGPT reflect on why it was wrong on something to generate a new prompt. The more you make it ask why it was wrong, the better result you're actually going to get. And so I don't know whether the scale is actually useful or not, and there's a whole white paper on it, but like the more you make it reflect on itself, the more accurate and better it gets. Bard is interesting, and by interesting, I mean it hallucinates a lot. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Thank you for the sub, Game Dev Jev. Thank you so much. Once Microsoft's Copilot and Google's Bard really truly integrates with the software that it has and the other tools those companies have, they're going to be super powerful. Like the stuff they were talking about on Wan Show about Copilot, like just completely like doing conclusions from your Excel sheets and things like that. Like the potential there is huge. I imagine all of these just starting out are going to be at the level that a lot of these chatbots started out, where it hallucinates a lot. It goes off on trails, and Midjourney V1 was very abstract and very had a specific style and wasn't very photorealistic. And now look at it. Chatbots based on GPT stuff like Novel AI and AI Dungeon and things like that, those went off in some weird places on their own all the time. The newer GPT stuff is amazing. So everyone starting out on their own tool is gonna have some whack stuff up front, but long term, these are gonna get incredible. Okay, and then they have some examples of reflecting where it's like, it asks what it did wrong, and it's like, whoa, I failed. In this attempt, I was unsuccessful. I did things in the wrong order, so next time I will refine it and do it better. Like, formatting the bot to do better each time is absolutely wild. So, lots of cool stuff to follow in this space if you actually want to use GPT for work, because really, I feel frustrated because I personally am not utilizing these tools in my work as much as I should, but that's because there's so much upfront, how should I say it, like hurdles to set it up. It's like if you've ever used Notion. Like right now I have Notion set up for like my outline for this episode, and I use it for some of my video scripts. Like I could go to my table for all videos. Like I have a thing set up, but this was all built by Thomas Frank, the Notion guy. Like this is his format. To build my own, which would be game-changing for my life, would be hours or weeks of my time. And when I'm so busy and so limited on work time at the moment, it's very tough to really kind of make that sacrifice, even if it's better in the long run. So I'm trying to slowly kind of push it in along the way as I can. Yo, you wouldn't recognize this. Yeah, I recognize you. Your ChatGPT Discord bot has 2 million users. That's insane. The Jur in chat kind of debuted that he built a ChatGPT Discord bot in my Discord just because I was poking at it. He's like, well, I made one, and then suddenly it blew up, and now it has 2 million users. That's insane. Okay. I also want to talk about TemporalNet. So there is a concept called ControlNet, which is basically like a module for Stable Diffusion. Stable Diffusion has a lot of different modules for stuff that you can do. ControlNet is one that does a lot better of a job of modifying existing images to do basically whatever you want. It's been pretty amazing to watch. I truly haven't played with it yet. But someone already has TemporalNet, which makes it a lot easier to work with videos because it references the previous frame in like as it's processing through frames. It references the previous frame so that it can stay a little bit more stable and stable, pun intended, and keep more consistent results. Now, obviously, these results are still a little bit messy, but like, so this is the original video. This is standard Stable Diffusion, and this is the typical problem you see where it just kind of every single frame is completely different. This is with a specific denoising filter that helps remove some of the flare, some of the like frame changes, as well as TemporalNet implemented. And then this is the final result with a different denoiser and TemporalNet. And you can see these two videos are significantly more stable and consistent. And you think about that in application to something like Corridor Crew's AI anime video, where they took their video, ran it through Stable Diffusion for generating an anime look, and they had to use a bunch of deflicker tools and things like that to try to reduce the variance, and they still had a ton. TemporalNet would be how you take that to the next level. And I would imagine with how consistent this is, dropping it to the like 12 or 15 frames per second they use for the anime, plus having the deflicker and things like that in the more anime style rather than photorealistic, I would imagine this would have stabilized their detail flickering significantly more. So I am super stoked to see if they're going to play around with it. But that has been a big thing that has come out, that if you're wanting to push, you know, AI into video, we are getting closer and closer. And it's kind of scary. I would love to see something like this combined with Ebsynth. Ebsynth is a tool that came out before any of these AI image generators really came out. That was the same idea of like you paint over a single frame of video and it applies that to all the frames. And so you like do one frame and then a couple keyframes and an in frame, and it does all of that through the interpolated frames. And Joel Haver, a comedian YouTuber, has been using it for a long time to make cool videos and stuff. I never understood why all the Stable Diffusion people like never really looked at this as closely, because I feel like this integrated with the, you know, ControlNet and stuff like that, like you would get a lot closer. Because instead you use something like ControlNet or TemporalNet or whatever on the keyframes, and then use Ebsynth to blend them together. You got video. Probably a lot better video than just using TemporalNet on its own might look like. Next up, I actually have a live demo for this because this is so cool. So this is a paid program. I just want to say $70 a year is not a cheap price, especially for a mobile app. And I never understand why so much development goes into mobile-only apps, because there is no reason, if it's doing all this on the cloud, that I shouldn't be able to use this on my computer. Ranting aside, this is a very cool mobile app called Photo Room, which just started as a basic like photo editor like all the others, but they've gone in and done a lot more features and things like that for you to do like social media formatted posts and create like magazine layouts and things like that. And they've been getting more and more into the AI space. They first did instant background removals, which does a really amazing job. And now they're doing what's called instant shadows, which is AI-based shadow reproduction, so that you can get like super professional product photography without drawing them yourself. And making shadows yourself is a nightmare. So I'm going to demo this real quick here. We have a feed coming. I never set up a Stream Deck button for it. That's fine. We have a feed coming for my iPad here. I'm going to take a picture of this camera lens. I'm going to use a bigger one. I'm going to take a picture of this camera lens. We're going to create instant backgrounds. We're going to use the camera. Apparently the NDI filter does not pick up the camera feed, so give me just a sec. Oh, the NDI feed is turned off. Hold on. We got this. NDI, start broadcast. It closed when I locked the screen. There we go. All right, so I'm going to take a picture of this lens. just with my iPad. Breaking all the rules here. Okay. It's going to scan the picture. Remove the background. Obviously, it can't do anything about all the light bleed from my colored lights and things like that. But now it has removed the background. We can choose what kind of, background we want. Let's go with color splash, I think. That's fine. It generates different options for you. Again, using AI. I really dig this one. Okay. Now I can say insert. Actually, that just inserts files. So it has a lot of these shapes and stuff like that, so you can make really cool product photography things. We're going to save that image. I also want to remove the background. I think that, or add the shadow. I think that's part of the background, or the shadow feature. So if we do instant shadow, do this one. Yeah, it removes the background anyway. And then it just generates realistic shadows based on what you're doing. So we can... Honestly, that one doesn't look as good. Maybe because it's head on. Let's do another picture. So we can come in here, create instant shadow, camera, use a lens. How am I supposed to take this picture? Good enough. It cropped off part of the lens. That's fine. So here it's generating like a messy background shadow rather than just a product shadow. That's honestly not good. I was getting better results when I tested this before live. Obviously, the examples that they have shown are a lot better for those products. But I am hand-holding. Maybe it struggles with the hand-holding aspect. But regardless, I think it's pretty cool. And they continue to update this all the time. It is, like I said, it's a $70 a year app, which is a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. What if you change the background? Yeah, it probably does better with like solid color backgrounds and stuff. But yeah, it really cool stuff that they're doing with this software. Like I said, my biggest complaint is that it's only iOS and Android. They don't have a PC version for something that does all of this in the cloud. And it's not like it's using depth sensors or anything like that on the mobile camera or anything like that. It's just, taking the pictures, because you can just choose an existing photo. So that's still okay. Also, it could be a green screen replacement. Yeah, it is way easier to just take a high-res picture, download it to your phone or iPad, run it through that to remove a background, and it does way better than a lot of the third-party options. It's a lot easier to do that than to actually chroma key a photo. Chroma keying video is a little bit easier if you did a good job with the green screen, but doing a photo is actually not as easy. Still ace, calculate the light source direction, object shape, brilliant. Yeah, like it is absolutely wonderful. All right, moving on. I wanted to mention there's a couple Midjourney updates I wanted to talk about. First and foremost, David Holtz, the creator of Midjourney, is talking about that Midjourney as a tool is moving towards 3D. He keeps calling it liquid imagination and like liquid. There was another one that he was coming up with, which is a weird name. But he describes Midjourney instead of like a fast 2D artist, it's a very slow 3D engine, and that the future of Midjourney is not one image a minute, but full 60 FPS, full volumetric 3D. I don't know how I feel about this in terms of like how Midjourney works. This was on one of their calls. They do like weekly Midjourney community chats or whatever. I appreciate this as a vision, because frankly, having this like if they turn Midjourney into an AI 3D rendering engine, then that gives you ultimate control over the image. So whenever you're like, wow, that Midjourney image wasn't in the frame that I liked or whatever, like you have the ability, if they develop it or integrate it with Blender or whatever, to move the camera around, to like tweak it a little bit, make changes on the fly, change out specific elements. But I know within as much as most people could possibly know, based on what I understand about AI image generators, that it's not currently doing anything in 3D space. So, well, it's most likely not. If it's still using the clip and diffusion method, like, because it's still generating from noise, none of that process is in 3D. It's not working in 3D. So, everyone's blowing this up as like a big deal. I will be very excited should Midjourney enter the 3D generative space, because they're generative space, because there's a couple like white papers on like NVIDIA's AI 3D tool and a couple others, but very few that you can actually use at this time. And so to see Midjourney doing it, giving the leaps and bounds of progress that they have made with the V5 engine and things like that, like, cool things are going to continue to be on the horizon. With that, they had to shut down their free trial, which is really unfortunate as someone who makes tutorials and, you know, got a lot of viewership from that free trial. But apparently too many people are making massive deepfakes of Trump and the Pope and things like that using the free trial and just causing too much chaos that they had to shut down the trial phase. They're also saying it's because of extraordinary demand, which is true. Like they have like tens of millions of users at this point, which is mind-blowing. So it's a bummer, because there aren't a whole lot of ways to mess with this stuff for free other than Stable Diffusion, which has a massive gap in terms of understanding things like that. But hopefully they can open it back up at some point. With that, I don't have a visual, source for it because it was just on Discord, but I guess I can pull Discord over. They did just announce that they have a new version of V5 launching. I think it's already live. That is it's faster, which means it uses up less of your credits, which is a big win. It has less errors, and there was something else. Let me just pull up the Midjourney server. We'll just do this. No, I don't want to. Windows. All right, yeah, twice as fast, which means it uses half the cost of your fast hours. Little to no loss in quality. Should solve all the GPU shortages in terms of like too much demand for using it up where things run really slow from time to time. And if for whatever reason you preferred the older V5 version, you can still do V5A. But pretty cool regardless. I am beyond stoked at how quickly they have moved. Like, it has not been that far or that long since they started development of this stuff, and it is wild. I can't imagine any will do 3D properly for ages. It'll be hard enough to get them to generate simple shapes correctly. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Wish Midjourney had a non-Discord way of generating stuff. I believe they've been working on it. I think they're just trying to figure out a way, like, in a way, even though Discord is really, really possible, I think Discord is kind of a filter for them. Like, if they had just a free to use browser-based thing, like, so many more people would be able to, just hammer it. So, I don't know. I would love to be able to run it locally, but that's never going to happen because they're like a private research project and are going to keep it behind closed doors. I wish non-removable blockchain tracking was required for all AI-generated images for easy identification. Well, that's not how blockchain would not add to that, and that's not how image tracking works, because like basic image forensic stuff, like literally if I use a piece of AI and then edit it into a bigger photo, any of that tracking information would be gone. Like, sure, that would be helpful for the raw images, and that maybe reduces a basic, adds a basic filter to people who just take it out of Midjourney or something and post it to Twitter. But like, realistically, that doesn't fix anything. Still personally prefer Stable Diffusion. There's something so satisfying getting a good image from tweaking your own parameters. I mean, you tweak your own parameters in Midjourney, just not as many of them. I don't know. Midjourney trains itself on their own images to keep making better and better models. And so it is so much easier to get better results in Midjourney than Stable Diffusion. I struggle a lot with certain things in Stable Diffusion just because you have to be so specific, or you got to do all the negative prompting, and it's just a lot more work for something that is kind of intuitive at this point in Midjourney. So, I don't know. Another big thing that I have been waiting to play with this forever. I signed up, I originally started filming a tutorial thinking this was fully released like 4 or 5 months ago, and then found out that it was only on a wait list, and I never got access for some reason. But now Gen 1, which is Runway's text-to-video effects and generator, is now available to anyone using Runway, and they're working on Gen 2 right now, which is even more mind-blowing. But you can more easily apply effects to your video with Gen 1, and like the stuff you can do with it, I think it only works in like 3-second intervals, but the stuff you can do with it is truly like awesome. So I hope they continue to go in this direction. I think they really got a nice bump from the momentum surrounding AI art generators, because originally, like, Runway was pretty cool. It was a browser-based video editor. They had some advantages to using it in regards to like you didn't need a powerful PC to edit video. You could do all these cool effects without, with clicks instead of knowing how they work. And then they started introducing AI for like background removal and basic stuff, which was cool, but not something worth disrupting my whole workflow for. But now they have some really cool AI effects that I'm at least going to sideload into my workflow. Not really, it's not going to replace Resolve for me by any stretch, but to, upload as like an effects layer and bring it back down into my edit. Very, very stoked. So with GTC, the game tech conference that NVIDIA leads, there's been a lot of news about AI and game development. And so this is a Opus AI tool that is basically a straight 3D or text to 3D game creator. Obviously, very early days. This is a cherry-picked example of what you can do. But like literally just typing out a description of a 3D world and it just generates it, I believe in like Unity or something, and just starts putting everything there, which is plain text. Like AI is taking over, or going to take over, every creative field, and not in a the robots are coming for us and taking our jobs kind of way, but like so many more people are going to have jobs because they're able to do the amazing ideas in their head and contribute to the work in some way, kind of way. Like, this is mind-boggling. Obviously, again, it's not that simple right now, I'm sure, whatever. But then you have other things, like Ubisoft announced a new AI tool that allows you to generate first drafts of NPC dialogue. This doesn't replace writers, just to be clear. And I mean, there are probably a couple writers who only generate the like random street folk murmurs or whatever who write those, but realistically there's not a writer on a planet that truly enjoys that kind of tedium work. And I try to say this about all jobs that get replaced over time, like autofocus replacing things, motion tracking replacing manual keyframing every single frame for thousands of hours. Like, those kinds of jobs are miserable. You'd rather be doing work that contributes more and is more fulfilling, and these tools allow you to do that because they take the tedious work and make it less tedious. And so Ubisoft is developing an AI ghostwriter tool to generate those kinds of random, the characters on the street that are talking to each other and things like that. Like, no one wants to spend the time to generate all those because no one really cares about them. They just need to exist and fit within the lore. And if you can build those constraints and have the dialogue kind of generate itself, save everyone time and effort. Unity also has AI coming as well. They have started teasing the barks. Yes, exactly. They have started teasing the text to, game generation tools, which is gonna, it's gonna start out kind of how Runway's AI video stuff was, where you just kind of typed out like, make this cinematic, and it made it cinematic. But eventually, especially combined with all the 3D art generator tools, you're gonna be able to just build like entire worlds from it and stuff like that. So we had that coming as well. And then, of course, there was the Wonder Studio announcement of an entire VFX studio built on AI, built into a browser that does the frame-by-frame, like, rigging, compositing, lighting, all of those things. I have to imagine the workflow for this is very fragile at the moment, but integrations with, like, Unreal and Blender and things like that, like, this will be truly just making VFX way more accessible in a very short amount of time, if it's as good as it seems. And this is one of those tools that I really want to see the Corridor crew get their hands on, because there's just so much potential built into so little. Like, so many of these tools at the moment are very dispersed. Like, you got something doing something over here, you got something doing something over here, you got something doing something over here. And you see cool videos like Corridor's anime video and things like that, where they combine the tools, they integrate the workflows and develop those new paths. But when you start seeing tools like this that already come with integrations or are built around integrations with Blender or Unreal or whatever, once those paths start being actually connected, like with NVIDIA's Omniverse tool or something like that, it's gonna be crazy. Because you have, for example, like right now, I could treat Stable Diffusion as a style filter for my video, but I can't use that inside of like my video editor, DaVinci Resolve. I would have to export an image sequence, run that through Stable Diffusion, tweak it, continue running it, whatever. Take those images, import them back as an image sequence, fit them to the timeline, all of this stuff. As we see more and more of these pieces start actually interacting together, it's going to explode, y'all. And I'm talking within months, not years. I'm talking by the end of the summer, things are going to be insane. Like, there's already plugins for Photoshop for like Stable Diffusion generation and stuff, but it's very minimal. Like the Firefly integrations, the Copilot integrations, the Bard integrate, like things are exploding fast. And the fact that, like, if you're worried about the impacts of AI, especially on jobs and things like that, pausing training of future AI tools was not the open letter to send out. The open letter to send out would have been like finding ways to adapt it better that doesn't screw people over, slowing down adoption rollouts, slowing down implementations within the workforce, not just development of it, of a new version. Like right now, the tools we have now can already like do crazy stuff. I don't know. That open letter was just, it really missed like the actual problems with AI, I think. That's literally the workflow for people using AI upscaling for Star Trek, DS9, Voyager. Yeah, I mean, most videos you just got to do that for like Waifu 2X and stuff like that. Speaking of integrations, Me6, which came under fire for ridiculous NFT involvement. It's a Discord bot. We still use it for some bot stuff, but we are replacing it soon. But they do have an image generating /imagine command. I hate that all the new Discord tools are just using /imagine. Like, I feel like you should use your own / command, but maybe it's just because people know what that is. And then an ask GPT command, but you have to pay for your server upwards of $10 to $15 a month for it, which frankly isn't worth it, especially when you have bots like from Jur that just tuned into chat, available for Chat GPT already. There's some on, you know, on GitHub you could run yourself. There's also AI motion tracking now. Back to VFX. It's called Move.ai. Cinecom has a sponsored video about it, so take that with whatever you want. But it is a tool built around motion tracking where you just kind of film the video and things like that. And they have a really cool video creating The Last of Us kind of zombies and stuff like that using that motion tracking. And it integrates with their Unreal Engine workflow and things like that. Really cool. Like I said, it's coming for every aspect of this kind of stuff. And I am beyond stoked. I understand some of the fears, but like, as a creative, I am seeing every single one of these tools either making a creative field accessible to me that wasn't before, or allowing me to continue to do my creative work, but at a faster pace, which for someone who is overworked and has ADHD is super important, and to just see my ideas come to fruition in new ways. Like, this is amazing. This is exciting. Somehow I did not include the link about GTC stuff. I do want to bring that up. I'll just bring up the keynote real quick, and I will have that linked in the description. I'm like losing $7,000 a month because there's no monetization for your bot. Well, yeah, but don't pay for that then. You played yourself there. So yeah, here's the keynote. I'll have it linked in the description once the VOD goes up in just a sec. But basically, the entire GTC keynote, which again, this is a big game graphics tech conference run by NVIDIA, where typically they talk about like, you know, implementation of ray tracing or the new game engines or robotics and things like that. And this entire show was basically built around AI and how, like, I think it says a lot to how important AI is. A lot of people compare AI to crypto and how it was just a flash in the pan and it was just a money scheme or whatever. NVIDIA never really dedicated that much time to crypto. Sure, they made a couple crypto-specific targeted graphics cards to try to help their PR because realistically all the miners were buying up all their graphics cards. That's why we had the graphics card shortage or whatever. They have been investing in hardware for AI for a while now, and it's kind of like they've been building up to this point, and like we're talking 5 or more years, both on the consumer side and on the server side, the enterprise side. They have been building up to this point for 5 to 10 years, and it's now finally coming to fruition. And so NVIDIA is just raking in the money because everyone is using their hardware for this. And so they have all these new libraries, all these new hardware, rental servers you can use to run your own ChatGPT versions and things like that. And that is basically the entire presentation. It's just about AI and all the new hardware that they're leveraging for this. They could have come up with new hardware that made crypto mining like significantly faster and like made dedicated mining rigs and stuff. But they knew how nonsense that was, and they didn't. This is the real investment they've been playing at the entire time. And so they have so much new hardware. They've got lots of features. They announced a partnership with OpenAI and Microsoft. Integrations with NVIDIA Omniverse, which is a really strange platform. Omniverse has been sold as so many things because really it's hard to understand what Omniverse is based on the pitches, because it was pitched as like a way to make machinima through game engines, because you could connect game engines to like 3D modelers and video editors and make machinima videos. But it was also pitched as this corporate tool to use for robotics like they're showing now and things like that. Because really, what's really cool about Omniverse as a concept, if you can, as a production house, as an individual, as whatever, an enterprise solution, if you can find a way to integrate it into your entire workflow, it connects all those platforms. So Omniverse is a tool that allows you to more seamlessly connect, you know, your blenders and your robotics tools and your automation tools or your art tools. Like, the idea is that they are trying to create and enforce this kind of universally compatible and supported standard for like formats and communication protocols, so that all these tools could work together better, so you can do whatever you want with it. And that's why the presentations and the pitches have been so confusing, because in one point they'll talk about making like I said, machinima videos with it, and then the other they're showing how like warehouses are using it to track their inventory and use robots to, Amazon's using robots to pull the packages off the shelf and things like that. Like, it is used for everything, but AI is absolutely playing a role in this. So that's the only like directly AI thing that was in the presentation, and it was at the very end. Whereas the entire primary presentation here for over an hour was about all their investments in AI, because AI is just building up more and more, and it's not going anywhere. And I am so excited to see where these tools go. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this episode of AI news. I haven't figured out what like this, if this is gonna be a show, like what's it's gonna be called, or branding or anything. I hadn't got to post here in a while on the Analog Dreams channel. Really wanted to. If you're watching over on Twitch, go subscribe if you're interested in art, crafts, AI art, any of that, to Analog Dreams. Yeah, I just wanted to chat with y'all, get some content going, talk about all these updates. I'm gonna go make dinner. We're making some amazing garlic pasta, one of my favorite meals. Have a great weekend. Remember to be kind. Rewind.